So I've had a bit of deja vu this morning, because I've already travelled along this very stretch of the canal once. I moored up at Swarkestone last night, and I was pointing in the opposite direction because I want to head to Nottingham, and you can't turn around. Unlike an RV or a motorhome or even a cruiser, I can't do a 3-point turn and go in the opposite direction, because the canal here is around about between 40 and 50 foot wide. Even in some patches it might even be 55 foot, but I'm 60 foot long and it's physically impossible for me to turn around. So there were no winding holes for me to, which is effectively a bulge in the canal for me to push the nose in and turn around. There were none of those, so I had to go a good hour up the canal to Stenson Lock, up through the lock, which is around about 100,000 litres of water, so the lock keepers said there, up to a winding hole, which is a bit of an entrance to the marina, turn around, come back down the lock. Luckily someone was also coming going in this direction, so I didn't waste all the water. And in around about half an hour I will be in exactly the same place as I was this morning, but pointing in the opposite direction.
I left Swarkestone and headed west to Stenson Lock. Just above the lock there's a nice little marina, and right next to the lock there is a lovely tea room. I turned around and returned to Swarkestone, where I had previously moored up. Going down the Swarkestone Lock, I continued east along the Trent and Mersey Canal, past Weston-on-Trent, where there's another water point next to the lock, Aston-on-Trent, and the popular Shardlow area, with its large-scale canal architecture and pubs dotted along the cut. Continuing past the busy Sawley, and then out onto the wide River Trent, to where the River Saw and the Erewash Canal meet.
Sometimes when it's quite rural and the towpath is quite quiet, I let Molly off whilst I navigate on the canal. She can have a really good run around, a good walk, 3 or 4 miles. In fact, for her it's probably about 9, because she goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There's no risk of her trying to get back on the boat. She knows that she doesn't have to, and she just keeps up with me. If anything, she's quite scared the fact that I might drive off without her, so she never causes any problems with other people or other dogs.
It was a nice calm journey east, back towards Swarkestone. I'd moored here for a good week whilst I finished my plumbing. It's a nice area with water and bins nearby, and I've been able to park my car on a bridge crossing the canal. Once I'd filled my tank with water, I continued to travel east.
Couple of miles, near enough every 100 foot or so, there's this bright blue spray paint in the hedge or on a tree or on a post, and I'm not really sure what it's for. I can understand things like on trees, for example this one. Those crosses could be to indicate that the tree needs a bit of chopping or something, but there's lots of blobs in the hedgerow at almost sort of equal distances, and I'm not really sure. The only thing I could think it could be is fishing, maybe there's going to be a fishing tournament this weekend, and the blue blobs in the hedges are where the fishermen are allowed to fish or something. I'm not really sure. If you do know, and I'm on the Trent and Mersey between Swarkestone and Shardlow. If you do know, leave a message in the comments, because it's been baffling me for about 3 miles now. Just over those hills over there is Donington Park, and on Thursdays, which is today, they have motorcycle trials days, and you can hear all the bikes zooming round and round the track. As the day progressed yesterday, I went through Shardlow. I was wanting to moor up in Shardlow, but it's quite late in the day and every single mooring spot was full, so I just kept on going and kept my fingers crossed that I wouldn't end up out on the River Trent, because it was getting dark and it was raining. However, just west of Derwent Mouth Lock, I found the very last mooring spot. Nice stretch of the canal, nice and quiet, extremely dark at night. And this morning I'm sat in the Derwent Mouth Lock, but I'm waiting. I can see a boat right on the horizon that's coming down the canal, so I've left the gate open for them and I've moored my boat over in the lock so that they can just come straight in. They'll be really pleased. I'll be going down onto the River Derwent. It's only a short stretch, then out onto the River Trent to Trent Junction. Now, Derwent Mouth Lock is the junction between a canal and a river, so I've got to be aware of the water level markers. Today it's not even in the green, so I'm well within limits. There's no problem going out onto the river. But if it was in the yellow, I would need to take loads and loads of caution, because the levels can change quite rapidly. And if it was in the red, I'm not allowed to leave the canal and go out onto the river, regardless of how many people or how long I've been here, because the river is in flood, and then that means it's really dangerous. I'm just waiting for this other boat to come in and then we'll be off. Even though the mooring's quite nice and it's lovely and dark at night, I'm quite looking forward to leaving here, because there's a real sewage smell in the air. Just across the trees here there is a large sewage works, and I think when it rains the sewage fills up or does something. Anyway, it really smells in the air, and I'm quite looking forward to leaving. That's number one good deed of the day done. I waited quite a long time for that boat to come into the lock, but I'm not in a rush. It's good to save the water. There's nothing worse than when you're on a canal or a river and you can see a lock in the distance, and they look up and they can clearly see you, but they think, oh, I'll just close the gates and go on down without you, or they'll go on up or whatever. Such a waste of water. And of course you arrive way before they've actually filled or emptied the lock, so it happens occasionally, but I don't like doing it. If I see people in the distance, I stop and wait, and the people behind me were really pleased. So I'm just leaving the River Derwent and heading on to where it merges with the River Trent. The Derwent goes one way, the Trent goes the other, but it'll get really large in a second. And if I were to navigate to the right, that's where Shardlow Marina is. The marina isn't on the canal up in the Shardlow area, you have to go down the River Trent. With the River Trent so wide here, I've picked up the pace a little bit. You'll notice I'm wearing my safety gear. I try to remember as much as I can to keep both Molly and I safe, mainly on rivers or going through difficult parts like long tunnels, because you never know what's going to happen. With me being solo navigation, if I fall off the back, then the boat will zoom off into the distance, because there's no stop release or anything like you would have on a cruise or a motorboat. There just isn't that sort of thing on a narrowboat, mainly because you're travelling at about 2 or 3 miles an hour on a canal, and sooner or later the boat will just sort of crash into the bank and go into the side. So it's not like propellers can, well, yeah, propellers could wound you, but it's not like a motorboat where a boat could go round and round and round.
The huge pipe bridge structure spanning the wide river is always an impressive sight. As I passed under the M1, I kept to the right as there's a powerful weir just past the bridge to the left.
So just ahead of me is Sawley Floodlock. Now, I've been through this a couple of times, and this is the first time it's actually been open, so that really gives an indication that the river is at a sensible level. There's no risk of flood, and the level in the Sawley Marina and the cut outside the marina is all the same level, so it's nice and easy, this one. I just go straight through.
The stretch of water just after the floodlock is called the Sawley Cut. As you enter this calmer stretch of water, there's an impressive houseboat to the right. There's a large marina here with a well-stocked chandlery and all the normal pump-out, fuel and engineering services.
On my starboard side, down the cut here, there's Derby Motorboat Club. A huge array of different types of cruises, small, large, cheap, expensive. Lots of people working on them, and it's quite a busy area. So I'm just going through Sawley locks at the moment. They're manned by volunteers from Good Friday right the way to the end of October, which is brilliant. I came around the corner and the gates were nice and open for me. They're hydraulically operated, and you have to have a key, and there's a control board here, so I'm just really grateful that they're here today. That was a nice volunteer at Sawley Locks. I like having a good chat with the volunteers. Some are talkative, some aren't, but there's nothing worse than seeing boaters just going through and just completely ignoring them. It's like, well, hang on a minute, they're volunteering their time, they don't get paid, they're volunteering their time to help you get through a lock, and I've seen so many boaters just completely blank them, and it's just not on. So I like to have a good old chat. Nice hot coffee. Bit chilly this morning. I thought it was going to throw it down with rain, and I'm absolutely baking under all this wet weather gear, but you know what'll happen the minute I take it all off and sit it in the sun, it'll start throwing it down. So best to be safe than sorry.
Earlier in the day I contacted the woodyard in Nottingham to find out if my account had been set up. It hadn't, so instead of travelling into Nottingham and sitting tight for a few days over the weekend, I decided to make a bit of a detour up the Erewash Canal. Trent Junction was rather windy, and as I made the wide turn into the relatively narrow entrance to the canal, I heard a blast on a horn. So reduced my power and out emerged another narrowboat. I just hoped the side wind didn't push me off course, but with a bit of backward turning I entered the calm waters below Trent Lock. Next week I start my detour up onto the Erewash Canal. I've heard so many boaters complain about it. Too many weeds, too many locks, doesn't go anywhere. So I thought I'd test it out for myself. Don't forget to click the thumbs up if you like this episode, and subscribe to follow my journey. It doesn't cost you anything and simply informs you about new content. Until next time, see you later.